Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio. Nancy and I have been through a number of wildfires, especially when we lived out in the mountains in San Diego. And wildfires are scary. They're not going away. They're getting hotter, burning faster. We've seen it all across the desert Southwest, the Pacific Northwest earlier this year, especially California. It's been brutal. The sequoias, we go to the sequoias all the time. They've been through a lot. And so we're going to talk about wildfires today and an innovative new map that has been put out through the Western Fire Chiefs Association. This is phase 2 that is out. They launched this map back in July, but this is a really cool interactive map where you can see where the fires are happening. You can see what is happening in regards to those airplanes that go out and drop the retardant and all kinds of other things. And I don't know all about it because I'm not a fireman, but I respect and love firemen and firewomen who keep us safe. And so we're very excited to have Fire Chief Z, Kim Zagaris, joining us. So we're going to call him Chief Z. He's an award-winning firefighter. He's done so much in regards to emergency response. So welcome to the show, Chief Z. How are you?
Good. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
This map is so cool. I know before we started recording, I was telling you, Nancy and I went through the Cedar Fire, and we went through, actually, it was a year and a half of hell up in the mountains. We went through one fire after the other. Some were arson, some were not. One was the DEA clipped a power line and set like a pot field on fire. I didn't say it, but that's what happened. And the wind was not helping with anything. So it was just a really bad year. And so many firefighters came in from all over actually to help our town. And then it spread. You know what happened with the Cedar Fire. It was like a historic one. And we actually ended up evacuating all the way to Sierra Vista, Arizona. That's how far we had to evacuate because everyone was evacuating. Even, East San Diego was evacuating. But when firefighters were coming up, they were using Thomas Guide's maps. And, it wasn't, our mountain roads were not the easiest to figure out. And we're trying to help them. And at the same time as residents, we're like, oh my God, this place is on fire. So we'd go rushing to help our friends and then go, oh no, it's a mountain over, whatever. So it was like this, it was a hot mess for all of us, not knowing, you can't really see. And this was, I think we had cell phones we had the beginning of cell phones at that time. So here we are with this amazing technology. We could have used them, but at the same time, it's like, thank God for this because the wildfires are heating up worse than we could ever have imagined, right? It's getting hotter out there.
Yeah, it's definitely hotter. Follow the news. It says that, not just California, but the Western United States is in a 1,200-year, worst drought in 1,200 years. And, it doesn't matter where you go in the West. And it is definitely drought conditions are really in climate are really driving our fire conditions today and creating a lot of impacts, both, destruction, smoke, just a lot to deal with. And it takes a lot longer to recover for those folks that lose their homes and their property from a wildfire than it does a lot of other disasters.
Yeah, it's, and it moves fast. And, I remember when that first fire happened before the Cedar, and it happened so fast. And Gray Davis was governor at the time and didn't allow, the retardant planes to come up because of the timing. But at that time, the communication, we weren't ready for all of this as residents. We weren't as prepped as we can be now and have all these, digital tools. And people didn't know what to do. Should we evacuate? Oh, I'm going to stay home. And people were jumping in swimming pools. People died in. I remember one lady with her little dog got in the bathtub thinking they'll be more safe. They weren't and should have evacuated. But everyone was doing what they could do. The fire department obviously was, going as far as they could. But this kind of technology now is incredible because we can look and see this is where the fire is, but know about the airplanes. Can you tell us a little bit about the air part of this? Like, is this retardant planes that we're looking at? What's happening with that on the map?
Actually, what one of the new features is the ability to, to actually see the firefighting aircraft in both fixed wing and the rotary, which is the helicopters, you should be able to see on the map as an example. So it'll give you an idea, where they're flying at on the fire. Won't actually show you where they're dropping, but it'll give you a good idea because it doesn't actually say, oh, they're dropping, unless you're watching that by live news or something or out of your backyard. But
Yeah.
it does give you a good idea of what's happening out there. And again, not only are we using this map just came out in mid-July of this year. And that was phase 1, and now we're rolling out phase 2. So phase 2 is, you got the aircraft in here. On top of that, one of the other things we're doing is we're using some of the technology for a program in California called Virus. And it's a plane that does real-time intelligence. So when first report of a fire goes out, they can launch the aircraft and actually provide the incident real-time information on the location of the fire, show what the fire is doing. The fusion centers that work closely with the fire plane actually starts looking at modeling the fire in conjunction with the University of San Diego Fire Lab, and actually determining how far, how fast that fire will move, and give us some real-time information is what it's really about in today's day and age. And then they transmit that information very quickly down to the incident commander, to the command centers, as well as to some of the boots on the ground.
And so a lot of this, isn't this partly the Forest Service that you're working with to get that information too, the National Forest Service?
Actually, I'll kind of back up a little bit. So when the map first rolled out, it's actually using 2 sources to get the information. One is the U.S. Forest Service Irwin project out of the National Emergency Fire Center. We get data directly from them, and a project called Pulse Point. Now, Pulse Point's kind of interesting. It started out with people having heart attacks, and if you were signed up on the app and you were certified to do CPR, you get notified. And if you're available, you could respond to somebody very quickly and provide intervention maybe before first responders get there in some cases. So what we're actually doing with Pulse Point is we're still in the very early stages of having the local agencies provide us the information on through Pulse Point on breaking wildland fires, so we can actually get that out there without actually waiting for maybe the Irwin data to come in, and that may not come in right away. In fact, the mill fire up out of Weed, California, was several days before that fire actually had a map on there. So what we did to get the perimeter up on it, we actually used the data coming out of the fires program from the aircraft to actually put that up. Now, the fires program's actually in its 4th year. First year was funded by the California State Legislature to Orange County. Last 2 years, Cal OES has been funding the aircraft and what it does for the state. And this year, actually, in the new budget that for July 1 for 22-23, Cal OES and Cal Fire are jointly doing the project, are in the process of transitioning out of Orange County into the state's responsibility. And over the next couple of months, we'll finalize that out. But that's about a $30 million appropriation to make this come together. And what's kind of also nice is that this doesn't just do wildland. A couple months ago, they had an oil spill already off the Orange County coast. We're able to put the fires plane up and get some real-time information on that.
That's great.
We use it for train derailments and other. We're looking for lost hikers or hunters out there. So we're doing a lot of different things with the program. It's
That's amazing.
With the technology, much like this map is.
This is exciting to me because, I mean, especially going like you're talking about hikers and hunters out in the wilderness, that's what the Cedars Fire was started with, was a hunter out there going, help, it's by fire. But when you think about these wildlands, and we have wilderness areas, which are, magic. it's so hard to find somebody, how do you find someone? But, having that, so it's basically like you have a big camera going all over the states, basically, these Western states being able to showcase and compute it to the map. But is that right? Would I say it that way? It's like a big satellite camera, kind of like an
Well,
Elon
it's
Musk is
actually
floating through.
it's actually a camera. It's sensors and cameras that are in the plane that's
Okay.
flying over that takes that data and does infrared and other capability that it does have in real time. What's also things that we do out of the Fusion Center working with the UC San Diego Fire Lab is it also uses the Alert Wildfire camera system as well to gather that information. So we put up all these cameras over the last number of years, and what it does is actually, if there's a camera in that area, it can actually provide a real-time imagery of what's going on with the fire. We can see it build, can do things. Several of the command centers and key personnel actually have the ability to move those cameras and actually pull them in a direction or lead them in that area to monitor that particular fire. And that information is also coordinated with the fires program, and they send out the information, and that's also shared with us and our Western Fire Map.
So for the firefighters, this is a huge tool, right? For them to understand, get their bearings and see things, or is it really mostly for the residents? I also want to talk about for travelers going into parks, because it's confusing, like the sequoias. Oh, you can go this side, you can't, you can do this, there's all that wilderness area. So, and that was some major fires over the last couple of years in those forests, and people live there too,
Yeah. So 2 years ago, the Western Fire Chiefs Association Board of Directors decided that they wanted to, have a public facing forward map out there. Not all the government websites are forward facing sometimes, that some information comes off them. And the whole idea really wasn't really just for the firefighters, it was actually for the public. One of the real interesting things about this particular app or program here is that it's designed to work in areas where we have low cell coverage, so maybe the broadband capability is very low. And so unlike some of the government facing maps, which takes a long time to load up with all the data, this is designed to be very quick and very fast. We believe it's probably the fastest one out there right now. And so if you're in an area where low latency is out there, or maybe you've lost a cell site, but you still have some coverage, you can actually pull this up and actually see what's going on in the fire. Maybe you've got—
and share it and easily share it. That's what the coolest thing. It is so easy for people to embed on their sites. So like blogs and municipalities can use this, actual cities can use this, but to share it to your friends and on social media, it's like the quickest thing ever.
So if you've got family or loved ones, and maybe, they're in an area where they're having a fire because you've seen a broadcast, you can go up on this real quickly. Maybe you're working someplace and you're having a fire near your home. You're wondering, if your family's going to be safe, or maybe it's your business or employees or whatever it may be. It's really good. Also, it's kind of nice. It only takes one click to get there. Loads up very fast, as you've probably already seen, and it's designed to load up really on a smart device. But one click and you're there. And as you said, you can easily, do the share and get the embedded information and go from there. And whether you want to look at a particular map, focus in on it and copy that information and post it, or whether you want to use the big map of the Western United States as you got in the background there.
I like it, but but it tells you about how many people have been deployed, how many firefighters are out there, who, the plane. I mean, look at that information. It's amazing. And how it gives you like an up-to-date, event news on it too. What I wanted to touch on too, so people know the website, it is WFCA.com.
It's actually www.fire-map. .wfca.com.
There it is. Yeah, I have wfca.com/fire-map. That'll take you there too. But we're going to embed both of the, the website on both of our websites, Blend Radio and TV.com, and also nationalparktraveling.com, because fires do happen in these wilderness areas. And so for travelers, I mean, Yosemite got it too this year. I mean, it's just been in Oregon, and I mean, it's been brutal. So what would you advise travelers going to these national park lands and forest lands? When you would you say, look at the map before you start going?
Well, I think it's always good to have, I use this regularly, good situational awareness about where you're going. And, if you're taking a vacation, you probably want to know that if you say you're going to Yellowstone, they've got fires going. What part of Yellowstone's open? Maybe not all of it's open. Those are the types of things you really want to take a look at. Maybe you've got smoke conditions that you're worried about because of health reasons. I think those are all good things to take a look at, but a good situational awareness to what's happening, weather changes quickly. You could pull into a national park site and be in the Sequoia Kings National Park, and it was a nice day when you got there, and now it's getting overcast, and that evening you see a lot of lightning strikes in the mountain. Well, that's probably not going to be a good day for some folks. So you just want to have good situational awareness. When you enter the park, you want to ask, make sure you understand, what their procedures are. I always tell folks, 911 is great. What happens if you're in a part of the park that doesn't have cell coverage? Try to find out those particular situations, kind of watch those situations as much as you can. Know where the evacuation points are. Think about areas that are large areas like meadows, and maybe where you can pull into a concession area, and they've got a lot of parking lot where you're not going to get fire in there. Those are the types of things to look at, because maybe you can't get out of a certain area, you can't evacuate out of a certain area, but there's an area you can take safe refuge. Those are the really things that don't assume that you're going to call 911, somebody's going to be there. The more rural you are, the longer it takes. The national parks are actually probably a little better equipped. They provide a lot of their own services all the way when you call 911 to emergency medical, to fire service, both structure, wildland, and vehicle accidents. But people should always be prepared and always know where things are. The other thing I would tell folks is that maybe you're in the forest or on BLM lands, or maybe on a refuge. You also probably really want to know, what county, what jurisdiction you're in. It only takes a minute to look that type of information up, because the best information is always going to be the local emergency managers at the city, at the county, that can provide you with that alert notification. And today's phones, unless you disable them from that, if an emergency alert notification goes out, your phone should automatically go off. You probably have heard that when there's been a missing child or something else.
Amber,
but
yeah.
I tell people, don't turn those functions off. They're there for a reason. But they're a really great tool. But if you wait till 11th hour and you're waiting until you get that notification, what do I do? Where do I go? It's probably already too late. At least in the wildland, one of the things we also tell folks is, you can Google in Ready, Set, Go. And it's a national program that started really after the 2003 fires that was put into place. That became a national program from California. And Ready means you gather those items, and maybe it's your home, maybe it's your travel trailer, your motorhome you're traveling with, or you're staying in a hotel out by the park or where you're vacationing. And what items you need to have? Well, everybody should have a go bag, and they should have their important things in there, such as medication, some water, some food. Those types of things are really easy things to have in there. Credit cards, money, don't leave home without it. You may need that. Much like any
Cookies.
emergency.
Always take your cookies.
Yeah, unfortunately, in today's day of everything that we do electronically is done off the internet. It takes fiber optic cable capability. And so when we lose power, we lose that fiber optic cable. Credit cards aren't going to probably do any good. And unlike the old days where the merchant pulled out the machine and you put out the carbon copy and you ran that over the top of your card and got that information. I don't see anybody doing that anymore, but always having some cash on hand.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, remember those machines, those little machines? We don't have those no more. Yeah.
Yeah, making sure that you've driven a while and you pull into the park and you decide, well, I probably need gas, but I'll do that, before I leave. Probably a good idea to, make sure your tank's filled, you're ready to go. I can't tell you, people during emergencies, they have a routine they get in. Well, I don't want to fill my car up till I need to. Well, then over in the middle of the night, you get an emergency and you got to evacuate. And in some cases, you could be stuck in an evacuation line that may be stuck in there for a couple hours and maybe you haven't got enough fuel to make it that far. So people should always think about being prepared. Do a Boy Scout motto, Girl Scout motto, be prepared for any situation. And again, have some provision. When you go to the mountains, I always tell folks you should, like we used to, when we were young kids, Smokey always dresses in layers. That way, when he gets warm,
Right.
takes off his jacket, and then when it gets cold, he layers back up.
Exactly. Layers and cookies. I always say, always have cookies on the side because you never know. You just want it for the, those moments. You want some chocolate. I'm just saying. But the thing, talking about the gas thing, that's actually a really huge thing. We have a rule as soon as the car goes anywhere, because we travel full time. And so, I mean, if you go in northern New Mexico and you don't fill your tank, you're up a tree. In fact, there's no trees in some of those areas. You don't have a tree. You're stuck. You need to. And we always have a rule of as soon as you get near half a tank, fill up. Period. You never know what's going to happen. We've been through hurricanes, fires, tornadoes, cyclone. I mean, we've just kind of been through all of these things, and you really learn. Even, going, I know it sounds paranoid. And when I talk to people, I always go, I'm not paranoid. I've just been through it. Like if we're in a hotel, we always have the bag. This is what you need to grab. People will leave computers, their cameras out. But if you want to go and you need that camera bag, that computer, you need it to be able to just grab and go. That's something we tend to just relax so much that when something happens, you can lose that stuff. We've been in a hotel fire. And then the next day the hotel got looted. This is in South Africa, it got looted. And we went back to the hotel after this fire right outside the kitchen, which went up by our window. And then we were watching people looted the hotel. We're watching them going, oh my gosh, they've got our stuff over there, holding up clothes, the whole thing. So we always just have this thing about when you go to sleep at night and it gives you peace of mind. If something happens, grab. Be able to just grab.
It's always, I 45 years in the fire service, I can tell you that we're driven to be in a routine and how we do things at the station. That leads into what we do in our home lives, and always be prepared out of there. And, if you got a go bag, in today's day, you have a little carabiner on there and you put your keys and your important things. And so you got one thing you can grab pretty easily. If I were on a plane, I'd do the same thing. I'd make sure I'd have that bag with me. But don't take anything with you. I'm taking that bag with me. May not take my suitcase, but we were talking about making sure you've got enough fuel. In today's day and age, since we're moving towards this electric era, I'd also tell folks you should, if your car needs a charging, and don't wait till you're ready to leave. Also, get it charged before you go in. Make sure you're set to go. It's kind of like making sure you've got enough batteries to run your flashlights and any of your appliances that you need. That if you got a cell phone or computers, that you have a way to plug them in on your car. If you got an older car and it does have an AC/DC converter, maybe it's now time to really think about getting that so you can charge things up and make life a little bit easier. Even in today's day, I tell folks, especially going to be out camping, they make some really cool little solar charging devices for your phones and iPads and that can go a long ways. If you're worried about batteries sometimes, you can go online and get the ones that you can crank and generate your own power to get reception and do those things. Those things still work great in today's day and age and aren't relying upon if your batteries run out or you don't have any, or, and again, talk about hurricanes, when hurricanes coming and it's looking like a bad one, go try to get water, food, or batteries or anything else from a local store. Good luck.
When we hear and see stuff, right now we're in recording in East North Carolina. So Hurricane Ian kind of came through like the backyard here where we are, and on a farm with a bunch of trees. And we're like, now there's tornadoes. And we're like, okay, we're going downstairs. And I'm like, you know what? I could see this storm coming up, but they hadn't quite declared it. And I saw like a bunch of rain. And I'm like, we're out in the boonies. And I tell Nancy, I'm like, that's it. I'm going to the store now and I'm filling up with gas now. I don't, it doesn't mean anything's really going to happen, but you go do it, because I know that gas stations, like if they don't have electricity to pump gas, I got caught in that. You're up a tree again. If you have a tree, we have trees, but it just is that peace of mind knowing that if you need to go, you need to. One thing I wanted to touch on big time, as we travel, because of COVID, we started pet sitting, and because it was a safe way to stay away from people and all of that. And one thing we started watching during hurricanes and wildfires and seeing some of the reports is that when there's these situations, it seems to me like some people, we should teach our animals to be cage friendly, or the crate friendly, so that when something happens, because there's places where people don't even have like a thing for their cats, and something could happen. And in an emergency, trying to catch animals in an emergency and not have a thing for them, that's something we saw also during the Cedar Fire. People have horses, everything's fine, we'll lend each other trailers, but when it's an emergency and you don't have a horse trailer, that's not cool. You've got to think about the animals too, right, in these situations.
So, having crates for your smaller animals is a great thing. Not all of them are hard. You get some of the collapsible ones that work out really good. But also the time to train your animal to be in them is not when an emergency is happening, it's ahead of time. And the animals, once they get used to the crates, actually feel very secure in there, because they're the way they're set up in there. But what they do need to make sure, it's not just the crates, but again, you got to have food, you got to have water for them. If they're on any medications, got to take care of them. The other thing you need to make sure is you've got the capability to go out and walk them. So you need leashes and collars and those things. Maybe a couple toys that they have they like to play with. Again, to be prepared are all good things. And that's just for the little pets. The big animals, and you're absolutely correct. People should plan ahead, and there are people who do not have horse trailers or capability to transport their large animals. And I've actually seen it where they'll actually spray paint on the side of the horse their phone number and turn their animals loose. And
exactly.
It's dangerous in a lot of ways. The animals, those animals will get hurt, but two, you're relying upon somebody to call, and they'd be in a situation where they dart out in traffic or any number of things. And it just, the more we prepare ahead, the better off we'll be. And there are plenty of websites, your local area that you're in, or in today's day, well, you couldn't Google things the way you could 20 years ago, and we're further ahead. And so there's no reason why you really can't be prepared. And if you got animals, most people are like your family, take care of them.
Well, I think this is such a huge thing. When we went through the Cedar Fire, we had all these different evacuations, and then this was the big one. And it was weird because that day that we went and evacuated, we actually went hiking through Cuyamaca National Forest on a hike. We came out and we saw the smoke coming up through where the high school is in Julian. And Nancy and I looked at each other and went, uh-oh. And we just had that feeling. And we had to go on really more gut instinct than being able to see this kind of map to see, is it time to go? Is it not? And that's something I think is really important, because a lot of people waited. I have friends that waited with their horses. Even our cats, when we evacuated, went down into the desert. Well, there was a ton of smoke. And that's what I think people really don't realize. It's not always the fire, it is the smoke that can get you. And the longer you wait, the worse it is. And that's something we experienced. But if we had seen, like, I think sometimes we evacuated from fires that weren't quite they weren't necessarily there yet. You know what I mean? Because we couldn't tell.
Yeah. So one of the things, so I'll cover a couple of things on this. We have people that totally rely upon their phones for mapping, not, or the system on board their car, or maybe they've got Garmin or some other device they use. in a lot of cases, when emergencies get going and they start putting up roadblocks, your device will not allow you to navigate in those areas. So again, I tell people that, if you're traveling in areas, think about getting a map of a local area. Know how to get from point A to point B. Again, the radio and if you're listening to satellite radio, you're probably not going to get the latest, greatest updates. If you don't have your phone, if you've disabled your alert notifications in your phone, you won't get what you need to have. If you're in an area in a community that's experiencing an emergency, you may want to go down and quickly download, go online and sign up for the emergency alert notification, so you get the latest information that's out there. Just as an example about being prepared. If you don't think through the items, and a lot of our, especially our wildland fires, when you look at the 2003, 2007 fires, boy, those fires really, when the wind came up at nighttime, and now you've got the smoke and the fire, and can hardly see some of the roads. And some of the roads, especially the, less maintained roads, may not even have striping on them because they're, rural
Or
roads.
guardrails, depending where you're going. You could be on the $1 Million Highway in Colorado. Yikes.
Yep. And so again, and what most people do when they get into those smoky conditions is, oh, I can hardly see. Well, I'll turn my brights on. Well, actually, the brights actually make it worse in the smoke. It reflects back to smoke and makes it harder to even see. And those are the things that, again, by knowing where you're at, thinking through where that escape route will be, or at least a safe refuge. I live in Auburn, California, so it's in the foothills.
Yeah.
And I just happen to live next to a golf course. And we just did a Firewise meeting on Monday with our Firewise community. And I reminded folks again that if you can't get out, if the road's jammed, or for whatever reason you've left too late because you didn't hear the warnings early enough, then one of the safest places to be is in the middle of that golf course where there's no fuel to burn up in the grass, and that's not going to happen. And so but again, if I said if you drive out there with your car, which is a good thing to do, so that way you can park out in your car, you've got you got some comforts there. Make sure you set the air conditioner so it's recycling the air inside the car, not outside the car, bringing in the smoke from outside.
Exactly. That's how my cat got sick in the car, just totally smoke. We were trying to get it right, and we messed it up, and we were evacuating. And I mean, we were driving. I mean, even during daylight, smoke is still smoke, and we didn't get it right. And the cat was not well.
I think, we've been in situations in which, it's 12 o'clock noon and it looks like nighttime. The night lights are on where you're at, and the smoke is still thick as can be, and the wind's blowing. My 45 years, I've experienced and seen a lot. I've helped people evacuate. We've helped people shelter in place and done the things you need to do. And, the more time our first responders spend trying to get you to evacuate, in the middle of the battle is the worst time. They say to evacuate, maybe it's time to leave before they tell you to evacuate. But if they do say, hey, it's time to evacuate, please leave then. Don't wait till the fire is almost upon you, or the water's rising, or you can see the tornado and, oh, shoot, whatever the situation may be, leave early, get out of harm's way.
There's a lot of wannabe heroes that stay back, and we witnessed that through some of the fires and some situations where I want to be the person that's holding down the town, and you can't be, you're not the fire person, and so one thing I just wanted to touch on is being in your way. And I think that's something, for travelers too. If we see a situation, maybe not go or look at maps and what you have here, and check it out, and then really find out when, go back and help, and once the fires happen, give back to that economy. You know what I mean? Go back to those communities. They need your help so bad. Florida needs us big time. We need to go help Florida, South Carolina right now, but we need to go back to those communities. So maybe stay away, because getting in your way, that to me would be, that's mean.
again, if you don't, if you're there visiting and you can get out of harm's way, probably make an adjustment. In a lot of cases, the people in the local area are having to evacuate, so they're looking for hotel rooms. They're looking for, place for their mobile home, or their campers or their motorhomes or whatever it may be. And so, we've actually several times in California, I've got firefighters who are actually in hotels in which we say, hey, we need you guys to check out so we can get the local folks, someplace to be and take care of them. And that's one of the things we work through back and forth very closely is in providing the service to those citizens and visitors of which we're sworn to protect and serve.
Oh, thank you so much for your service and for everyone fighting fires. Seriously, I think it's a scary, scary job, and we appreciate it so much. I mean, it's like I always tear up, but because it's just so traumatic. It is a traumatic thing for people to go through, and their animals, and their horses, and their sheep and dogs. All of it. It's a traumatic thing. So I just really appreciate what you're doing, and I know the resources. Whatever we can do from the public, what can we do more to help?
Well, I'll give you a couple ideas. Again, be on top of that situational awareness, take some extra time, and, other than, hey, we're in a beautiful spot, really take a time and think about some of those things I've already said, be prepared.
Yes.
And, having a go bag when you're on vacation or at home is a smart idea. Ready, Set, Go started out as a wildland program, but it actually works just in any type of major emergency or event that you may have to deal with. And so again, when it's time to go. If we've got an area that has been, the roads have been closed, I would tell you this, and there's no tougher job than being law enforcement and having a road closed and people trying to get around you, and it is just tough. But be considerate of those that are working the emergency. They'd rather be home with their loved ones too, but they're out there providing a service. So being courteous back to them, and they'll work with you back and forth as well. The things I would actually try to share with you. Their local communities where they live already have some stuff online. Take a look when you're in the new area, whoever provides that emergency services. Western Fire Chiefs, we coordinate with those 11 Western states and the Pacific Island territories out there. But the Western Fire Chiefs is part of the International Fire Chiefs. So just imagine we all work very closely together across the United States internationally on everything we do. And I can't emphasize enough about being prepared and having a good situational awareness of your surroundings and the weather and what could happen.
I love it. Thank you so much. And this map to me is something for all communities to embrace. Just every community should have it, because even what you're talking about, Ready, Set, Go, as we travel full time, and like I said, we've kind of been through a lot of it, and all I know is that is it. That, as travelers, you are 100% that way. But that really does, it's for everything. You can't say right now with climate change that this country and this world isn't going through a bunch of changes, whether it's tornadoes. I mean, there was a tornado in Flagstaff the other day. Like, what the hell? What are you doing? That's not supposed to happen. You go back to Missouri, but we don't want Missouri to go through that either. So we're seeing all these different situations, and they can come so much quicker than what you expect, because weather does change everything. So this map, do you see this map going beyond and that being replicated? Not only should everyone use this in the Western territories, in the Western, well, we're not in the West territory, I'm in the territory zone, in the Western states and the Pacific territories, but do you see this being duplicated across the country and around the world in this technology? So that, like, New Orleans and, hurricanes and.
Yeah, so kind of interesting today, there's a Greek delegation that was visiting Boise, Idaho, the National Emergency Fire Center, and the president of the International of the Western Fire Chiefs, who's also the Boise Fire Chief, actually spoke on the fire map that we're doing today, and they were very interested whether we were looking at expanding internationally. And so because of the feeds we get from the Irwin project that the U.S. Forest Service and National Fire Center have, that gives us information of wildfires throughout the United States. So that's really good. But we're pretty focused on the West right now. I'm sure we'll look at what else we need to do in the very near future. We're definitely getting a lot of attention internationally on the map, and because of what we do with Pulse Point and some other things. So I think there's some great opportunities to do some things. And again, we work very closely with, the Western Fire Chiefs is a division of the International Fire Chiefs. So they're the mothership, and we'll work closely with them on things we do very closely together for not only us, but the rest of the United States, and in some case, some of our international partners as well.
Yeah, because the rest of the world, we're seeing fires that we didn't have before.
Well,
Yeah,
Europe's been really hit hard this year, all the way from Greece, France to Italy to Spain. Just about all of Europe was hit pretty hard this year. Australia just coming into their fire season.
Oh man, Australia really got nailed. Oh man, right before COVID, and then COVID hits, and that's the other thing when you're having these situations and COVID, because COVID's not gone. We're still also having to look at, I know you guys are used to wearing masks, compared to us, but it's a whole other thing where you think about people being sick too, and so yeah, we got to embrace this technology. I think it's super cool. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate all the work you've done. And everyone, okay, we're going to have these up on nationalparktraveling.com, Blend Radio and TV.com. We'll have both maps. So as travelers and residents, you can have them. Again, wfca.com/fire-map. You can go right there and start accessing the maps and looking, because fire season is still here right now, unfortunately. So thanks so much for joining us, Chief Z.
My pleasure. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.